welcome back to the Cinema Condition with your host, filmmaker and creator of the Nerdcore Podcast Network, Raul Alejandro Mendoza. And as always, we are back for another movie with another guest, and today I'm inviting a new guest. Last week, we were joined by the wonderful Leah Burns for Ari Aster's 2018 film Hereditary. And she'll be back next week, but today I actually get to invite a new guest. She's not really new around these parts, but she is a new guest on this show. And that is none other than one of my favorite people ever that I get to talk to. She was on a couple of Game of Thrones reviews. I think she was definitely on the Django review. She was on our first ever theme review month when we started this podcast, when we started Nerdcore 3 years ago. That is none other than Julia. How you doing?
Hey, I'm great. Glad to be here again.
I know. I'm so excited. What should have been last week is now on this week, but it's okay because, it's what's it called? It's always great to have a Julia on whenever. It doesn't matter when it is. What's it called? Just having her on is the best.
I love being here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming on, Julia. Julia, so famously, her slot was decided at last minute. I never got the chance to grab anybody for a last slot, and I was saving it for a specific person, but I never got in contact with them because I wasn't able to get into contact with them. So I told Julia, hey, I do this podcast where we deeply analyze movies. Is there a movie that you want to do? And do you want to come on? She said, yes. And she goes, literally in that same span of a second, she goes, Blade Runner. And I said,
never been so certain.
I was like, you kind of made some people mad with that pick. Brad was mad because he's like, he loves that movie. And,
Brad's my natural enemy, so that's okay.
Yeah, your natural enemy since the incarnation of the show, right? But it's okay. But you kind of angered Brad with that one. But Brad right now has some beef with Alex for taking a lot of his picks as well. But yeah, we're gonna do a Blade Runner today, and yeah, first off, I want to know what's going on over there. How are you doing in Brazil?
So I'm here in quarantine, and last week I have a cyclone in here. Everything broke up. Some houses lost their roofs and things like that. But besides that, everything's good. Besides quarantine stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Not much to talk about because I'm not leaving my house in 3 months.
Oh, I'm not leaving it at all either. So we're kind of in the same boat here. But,
yeah.
At least you've been able to get on the show during quarantine and been able to, at least pass the time like that.
Yeah.
No more.
Yeah, it's great.
No more clubs, no more, DJs, you being able to DJ at the club anymore. But,
yeah, I'm using quarantine to improve my nerd stuff and my nerd knowledge.
Your nerd knowledge, yeah. You're just rewatching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood over and over again, which I'm overdue.
Absolutely.
I'm overdue my third rewatch of that show. I've rewatched it twice now, I think. First time ever. The second time I watched it in college, in my first year of college, and now I'm overdue having to rewatch it one more time again. But hey, that's what we have quarantine for, right? So we can rewatch all the shows
exactly.
that we yeah. But
exactly.
for those of you who don't know Julia, she's a big cinephile. She's a lover of movies, and you can tell by her coming on this show. She the first ever time I talked with Julia, her biggest love that I knew about was Star Wars, and of course it has to be Star Wars. Why wouldn't it not be Star Wars, right? And yeah, and what's it called? Then I get to learn more about her. Learn that she's a big Tarantino fan. We brought her in for Django, but what's it called? When people were asking her for her favorite movies, I saw that she posted Blade Runner, and during that time, we already had done our Blade Runner review a long time ago, and I was like, oh, I know that Julia's gonna be mad. It's kind of like with Nikki and Spirited Away. That's the one movie that she really would like to talk about. And we had reviewed Spirited Away way before Nikki had the chance to get on the show. And it's the same thing with Julia, like way before we could get, well, not way before, but like during that time when, like, you know, Julia wasn't coming on the show, we had already had done Blade Runner. And, you know, it broke my heart. But when I made the show, I said, you know, now that I can't find anybody else, I need to get a last second slot in there. And I knew I could come to Julia. I had no idea that she was going to choose this. Honestly, I was under the impression that you were going to choose Django Unchained.
No, I'm super in mood to talk about Blade Runner.
Oh my God. We're going to have ourselves quite the conversation about Blade Runner. But, you know, we're going to start our conversation, but what's it called? Blade Runner is directed by Ridley Scott, and we've actually never talked about Ridley Scott, so I got to introduce him to the people. For those of you who may not know the director Ridley Scott, which I am 100% sure, at least y'all have at least seen at least one movie from Ridley Scott. There's no way you've never seen at least one of his movies. So Ridley Scott was born on the 30th of November in 1937. He's an English filmmaker, and I believe he's Sir Ridley Scott. Yeah, Sir Ridley Scott. He was knighted. You know, he's really well known for his for obviously his first hit, his big hit, in 1979. And that was his science fiction horror film Alien. And then, of course, he would make in 1982 Blade Runner, and then he would make in 1991 Thelma and Louise, and his historical drama 2000 Gladiator, that I believe would win him the Best Picture Oscar, if I remember correctly. And then, of course, in 2001, he makes Black Hawk Down, his war movie, and he makes another science fiction film in 2015 called, The Martian. But there's more to Ridley Scott. I mean, one of my favorite movies that Ridley Scott has done is actually Kingdom of Heaven, based on the what's it called, the Crusades, and he's really kind of responsible a lot about these kind of modern day epic films, and he's done a lot of other stuff, you know, Robin Hood, Mogadishu, not Mogadishu, Robin Hood, Alien Covenant, Prometheus, and he's working on a new film with I believe Ben Affleck called The Duel. But, you know, nothing is bigger than, of course, his 1982 film that, you know, we're talking today, Blade Runner. But the thing with Ridley Scott that's always so interesting is how he kind of touches different parts, different genres. Like his historical dramas, he'll do these. I believe there's actually a rom-com that Brad saw that was directed by Ridley Scott. So Ridley Scott is really a versatile filmmaker in that sense. And his movies are always so grand in scale, even when they're just such smallish films like Alien, they're still very grand. And let's go ahead and talk about 1982's Blade Runner. Before I actually introduce it, Julia, this is a movie I actually didn't pick for you. I didn't pick this one for you. You picked it on your own. So I want to hear, why did you choose Blade Runner?
Okay. First of all, because it's one of my favorite movies ever. And, you know, every time I watch this movie, and I mean it, I watch it like more than 10 times, at least. I always feel like the future is so weird, and I always kept thinking, like, can we actually have droids sometime? Or things like that. And also, if you actually watch the movie, you can see how people have their own prejudice, like treating the different as the enemy sometimes. And, you know, the environment of the movie is like super nice, and all the cyberpunk stuff is like amazing.
Yeah. Obviously, this movie is. I'm sorry, Julia. Go ahead.
No, can go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, obviously, what's it called? If you've never seen Blade Runner, you have seen its influences absolutely everywhere. If we're talking video games, if you want the most obvious one, I mean, look at the game that's going to be coming out this year, Cyberpunk 2077. If that doesn't look like Blade Runner,
Exactly.
I don't know what you're looking at. But, you know, in anime, we have Ghost in the Shell that literally took its vision and imagery from Blade Runner. And, you know, science fiction, I've always say science fiction was really mastered with 2001: A Space Odyssey. But science fiction is revolutionized with 1982's Blade Runner. And it's one of the most important and pivotal movies to bless science fiction. And it creates the incredible dystopian cyberpunk world that we get to see in future movies. And another great example, another movie that we're going to actually watch on the podcast, discuss on the podcast, Akira. Akira's very influenced by Blade Runner as well. But yes, Julia, what were you going to say before I rudely interrupted you? Excuse me.
I was just saying about exactly about that, how the movie influenced a lot of things that we know nowadays. And I love how this topic stuff. I'm really in love with it.
Yeah, I could understand now. Now, Julia, so this is actually one of your favorite movies of all time. And I guess I wanted to actually answer this question. When you rewatch this movie, which version do you watch? Are you watching the final cut? Do you watch the director's cut? Or do you are you one of the lucky ones who has the original theatrical version? Because I know that your dad collects a lot of movies.
Well, I have, I guess I have the original.
Oh, really? Because I have the final cut.
The version I have is different from that was in Netflix.
Oh. So, okay. So, yeah, because the one on Netflix was the final cut. I actually have.
But sadly, sadly, I watched the version that I watched the most was the final cut.
Oh, okay.
Because, my Blade Runner DVD is like scratchy. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, scratchy.
It has some scratches on it, so it's like impossible to watch it.
Yeah.
So, sadly, I watched the most the final cut.
So I actually have the Blu-ray of the final cut. Now, what's it called? We're not going to actually have video to this. Like, we don't actually have face-to-face video as showing our faces. And I don't know why I'm holding the Blu-ray in my hand right now, like if I'm talking to you through video chat. But I have the Blu-ray I have the Blu-ray final cut. Okay,
I'm sensing it.
You're sensing it, right? I'm just swinging it back and forth. I have the Blu-ray version of the final cut. But back in my other house, in back of us, my brother bought the director's cut on DVD for a film noir class that he had. And I've actually never seen the original theatrical version. I believe the original theatrical version is the one that has the voiceover commentaries. I mean, the voiceover to give it that really noir feel. But I've never seen that one before. I've only seen the director's cut and I've seen the final cut. I obviously 100% prefer the final cut. I think the final cut is, according to Ridley Scott, Ridley Scott said that the final cut was the ultimate vision of what he had for the movie. That's the one that he had the most control over. Of course, it is famous that this movie had like a crap ton of cuts. Like, it had a theatrical, and then it had, another recut, then it had the director's cut, and it has another cut, and there's like all these different cuts to this movie, and then obviously it all leads to the end, the last cut that they made, which was the final cut, which is the restored version, the remastered version with the actual the vision that Ridley wanted out of this movie. And so I'm actually fascinated that you have, I believe that it's true that you're saying that it is the original version, which is really, really interesting because I don't know anybody who has the original version.
Oh, here in Brazil, you can have anything you want. At least sometimes it's not. Sometimes you just have to ask the right person.
Oh my! You're gonna make me want to clip out something from this show. Here in Brazil, you can have anything you want. Oh my! It's why you guys are always saying, "Come to Brazil, come to Brazil."
Yeah, come to Brazil and you'll find out.
Oh my God, Julia, you're gonna literally make me want to cut out something from here. That was amazing. Oh my God. So, For those of you who says you can't have laughs on this very serious show, it's one of the many reasons I love Julia here. So if you've never seen Blade Runner is actually what's it called now in the past for us because it's based on 2019. And
yeah, we're ahead of Blade Runner right now.
We're ahead of Blade Runner, yeah. Soon, I mean, I don't know if I'll make it to 2049, but if we make it to 2049, that'll be in the past too. But I mean, as it looks like right now, shit, I don't even know if the what's it called, the human population will even make it to 2049. But
yeah.
Blade Runner is set in 2019 in Los Angeles. So in this dystopian future, there was a kind of artificially created, not artificially, kind of genetically created people who were called replicants who were used as slave labor. But they grew a lot more intelligent than they were expected to. So they had to basically create a mass genocide of these replicants. And they were enacted by a special police force that were called the Blade Runners. And one of the most interesting parts when it tells you this in the movie, it's called it is not called arresting, it's called termination, and which once again reiterates that this is not
It's not retirement.
Retirement. It's not. It shows that once again, this is not like an actual, arresting. It's literally a mass genocide of people, and they would send them out to outer planets to do it. So, Deckard, our Blade Runner that we focus on, played by, of course, the incredible Harrison Ford, we concentrate on him and his journey to, kill the remaining replicants in Los Angeles. And he meets, somebody that will catch his attention and it changes his mind on what replicants actually are in Rachel. And we kind of go through the movie like that. And so this movie, before we actually get into the thematic stuff, I really want to bring up, we already talked about the cuts, so what's it called? I'll go ahead and just not talk about that again. We already talked about that. But I want to talk about a couple of things. And one of the most important things I think about when I think about this movie, it's the production design. So, of course, that cyberpunk feel that's created by this film, it is really done by this beautiful production design of just all this futuristic kind of fashion and the buildings being very Tokyo inspired and very very smoggy kind of a New York City look to it as well. The production design is beautiful and it absolutely creates the environment of the movie that you're watching. What do you think about all that, all the production design that's included in here, Julia?
I think it's amazing. Like, you really feel like you're in the future. Mm-hmm. And it's not like those, I don't know, even though I love Star Wars, not that kind of future, it's like something that could happen because Japan is like that, and
mm-hmm.
and it's visual, how can I say it, it's satisfying,
mm-hmm.
visually satisfying,
yeah, visually pleasing,
and the colors are great, and the weather, like, it's always raining, mm-hmm. and it's like brings an atmosphere, like super nice atmosphere to the movie.
Yeah. So it was when the first time I ever watched this film, I watched it before I watched 2049, and I was like, okay, I gotta watch this, and I watched it, and I fell in love with it the first time, but I watched the director's cut the first time, and I remember when I took my film noir class. And we were discussing neo-noir, we were talking about Blade Runner, and the professor brought up, like, neo-noir is created with, sadly, I have to mention this man's name, but neo-noir is actually created with Roman Polanski's Chinatown. But when people think of mm-hmm. neo-noir, everybody always looks at Blade Runner because they look at this heightened visuals of very like science fiction-y and very dystopian, and they look at this certain visual style of it, and they kind of slap the neo-noir label to it, and which is why now, of course 2049 followed that as well. And that's why I'm saying, like, with the visual look of it and also the production design, we really have made it possible for it to live, for it to be as relevant as it is. And it's just a testament to the work that they did on this movie. And I want to say that watching this in the high definition remastered final cut, these visuals still beat out more than half of the films that come out today.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Now, another thing. I'm sorry. Sorry.
One thing that really amuses me is that the 2049 is like exactly the same atmosphere. Like, I love how they did it. I mean, you're there, like it's the same environment, Like, I really love 2049 too. So.
Yeah. I'm glad that Denis kind of stuck to that visual style when he didn't decide to, go straight too far from it. Even though I did read what's it called, an article where Ridley Scott was kind of like in back of a, what's it called? I'll re-say this when somebody picks 2049, but I really wanted to talk about it right here because, Ridley would be really protective of this movie. Of course, he was supposed to do 2049, and then he didn't do it. So one time on set, Ridley was in back of Denis, and he was kind of, just saying a lot of pointers and kind of being a little bit too protective of what they were shooting. So what's it called? And I'm not gonna say the complete quote because I don't remember it correctly, but I know that Denis said something like this. He asked Ridley Scott, he goes, Ridley, what is like one of your favorite who's your favorite director that you would love to have been able to talk to? And he goes, well, of course it's Kubrick. And then he goes, if Kubrick was right here, would you be in back of his neck like this too? And Ridley apparently laughed, and he left the set. So
oh my God.
that always makes me laugh because I remember that, and it's like, of course he would be protective of this movie. I mean, first of all, they messed with this movie so much, the studio, and then they made him have several cuts, and he finally got his real cut until like years later. This film obviously bombed at first at the box office. It was a big bomb, and it becomes a cult film. So of course Ridley would be kind of protective of the sequel when they were making it, but
of course.
That always makes you laugh when he's like, well, if Kubrick was here, would you be breathing down his neck like this? And it makes me laugh so hard. But yeah, another thing that really I had to bring up before we talk about thematic elements, and so a lot of you guys know I'm a big score guy. I love movie scores and movie soundtracks. The score by Vangelis, oh my God! I mean,
it really makes me cry.
Yes,
I have the vinyl record.
Oh, really?
Of Blade Runner. I'll send you a picture later.
Yeah, I've been trying to find that myself. I've been trying to find that because I really want that record. I've been telling myself I'm not going to buy another record because it's a dangerous hobby.
My dad bought it like in 82, so
oh my God.
Like at the same time, so
yeah,
it's
Vangelis
like super old, but it's okay. It's perfect, and sometimes I hear it on the vinyl player. I don't know how to say it, but it's like insane. It's insane. I love that soundtrack. It's like perfect, and
it's beautiful in every way.
God.
It 100% has those leitmotifs of the noir kind of old noir type of saxophone to it, but then it has this beautiful kind of futuristic feel to it.
And there's a thing, I don't know if it's just with me, but it's a type of soundtrack that you don't hear it. It's like you're watching the movie and you don't realize it's playing a song because so in the movie, like
Mm-hmm.
The music is like part of the movie. It's not something outside the movie, it's like inside. And I mean,
Yeah.
when you're watching it, you don't feel like there's something playing out of the movie. Like it's in there. It's like perfect.
100%.
I
There's a
just
lot of
love
movies
it.
where you feel that the score is kind of secondary, and it feels like, oh, the score
Yeah.
feels kind of out of place. But in this one, like
Yeah,
there's
okay.
times I forget that the score is even playing, and I'm like, it's just
Exactly.
yeah, and you kind of forget, and you're right there, like, God damn, like Vangelis is going off here, man. It's amazing what he's doing here.
Yeah, it matches perfectly with what you're watching. So sometimes you just don't realize it's playing it. It's amazing. Like, not, oh, okay, now something's going to happen because the song changed. Like, you don't realize it.
Yeah, man, it's one of my favorite scores of all time. Of course, the score for 2049 is also absolutely genius. I mean, they got Hans Zimmer to do it. Hans is an incredible composer
Yeah.
himself. But this one, it's one of, honestly, at least top 5 of all time for me of the score, because it's just beautiful. And in what
Yeah.
Julia is saying here is so true. Like sometimes it just sneaks up on you, and you're just so immersed into the world of this movie that the score feels like it's just
Exactly.
part of it. It's just part of it, and you don't actually.
Yeah, it's like it feels like you're watching the song.
Mhm.
That's the feeling. You're watching the song.
Yeah. So I wish, and I know that this is never gonna happen because I think they're done making cuts to this movie. But I wish that they would do something similar that Ryan Johnson did for The Last Jedi. So if you bought the Blu-ray of The Last Jedi, you got inside of it a special feature, which was all of The Last Jedi without dialogue and sound design, and it's just John Williams' score. I wish that they would do the same for
Oh
Blade
my
Runner.
God.
Yeah, I wish they would do
Oh
the
my
same for Blade
God.
Runner.
Yeah, I'd love it.
I would love that so much, but it's
Oh my
amazing.
God.
It's amazing. But look, we're gonna go ahead and
Let's do this.
let's just do this. Let's finally talk into this. This movie has so many different
We're
thematic.
gonna make it.
We're gonna make it. Yeah, we're gonna make it, right? We're gonna be the ones who make it. You know, we're just gonna go ahead and just turn off everything
Yeah.
else, isolate the audio, and take the score and just do it ourselves. God, I wish that was possible. I wish I understood technology that much. But this movie,
And again, in Brazil, everything is possible.
this movie is layered with so many thematic elements. I mean, there's just so much to discuss here, and of course, probably one of the most prominent things that I actually wanted to discuss at first, it was. I mean, let's just get into it with this one. It's the topic of. Sorry, hold on. Excuse me. My first ever, I don't want to burp into the microphone on this show, at least. This whole topic of existentialism within this film has a very interesting kind of scope within. You know, the replicants really don't exist. They're used as slave laborers. And once they've actually rebelled to actually live as they please, they are still being tracked down and being made to look as they have like a target on their back for their own very existence. And there's a really interesting part when they kind of discuss this existentialism. It's towards the end when obviously Roy Batty dies, and one of the other police officers comes out in the back and he tells Deckard that, well, sadly, Rachel has died, but no, he doesn't say that. He's like, sadly, she won't live, but it's not like anybody does. And obviously, we find out that Rachel's not actually dead, that she's just asleep. But it kind of brings up an interesting thing that as a replicant, you really don't live because your pure existence is as a slave or as a target.
Yeah. You're supposed to die, like you have a day to expire, and that's sad.
Yeah. So it kind of brings up, obviously, some very interesting, thematic parts of a kind of French existentialism. Really, like, existence is nothing without meaning, and without meaning, there really is no existence. But it's just so interesting how it really kind of puts it out there. And Roy Batty is pretty much the most, the one that you can cling on to the most about that. But it's really interesting when we see it from the replicant side, because everybody else is kind of just living life day to day. They're in Los Angeles. And then you have these replicants who kind of like fear for their lives so much because they have a date that they expire, but also like that date can come a lot quicker because you're being hunted down because your existence is
because you're living.
Because your
because you want to live.
your existence is seen as less than. Yeah, and once again, it brings up what you were talking about, this whole prejudices and type of stuff there. But what do you think about that whole aspect of existentialism in here, Julia?
Yeah, every time I watch this movie, I kept thinking, like, sometimes we, as humans, we determine who lives and who dies, and sometimes people just want to live, and some governments and everything just decide who lives and who has the right to do something, and the replicants just want to live. They have an expiring date. They just want to live a little bit longer. Like, why they don't have this right? Just because they were made up. So okay, just because you were made up, you're not supposed to live. You don't have the right to live. Like, unfair.
And it's so interesting within the actual scope of the film, how it's not like a quick like injection or something. Like, it's not that they're arrested and then put on death row as we would think that they would be done as you see it in real life. No, they are literally publicly executed in plain sight as animals, as you would think, like, you would think like, oh, they're going to arrest them and kind of, execute them in the back. But no, it's literally like in plain sight when everybody sees it, and everybody else is kind of so desensitized because they're controlled by the Tyrell Corporation saying that these things are evil, that they're meant to destroy us, when if anything they're just symbiotic people who are just trying to live without fear. Yeah. So that's one part of our conversation. But when we come back from commercial break, we're going to go ahead and continue our conversation here about Blade Runner. But stay tuned for these wonderful commercial ads that are made by wonderful people here at the Nerdcore Podcast Network. And we'll be back after these words from our fellow podcasters. Hey, I'm Rolando Mendoza, and this is
Jabril Newton.
And we are the hosts of High Flyer Radio. And finally, pro wrestling has come back to the Nerdcore Podcast feed in the form of a show hosted by Jabril and I. And we talk about everything and anything in the pro wrestling world on Mondays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Nothing's off limits. Whatever you guys want to talk about, if it's from AEW to SmackDown to Raw to NXT, nothing's off the table. We can talk about it.
We're going to talk all about it. And if you can get it a day early, you should go to the www.patreon.com/thenerdcore and pledge to the tiers on there so you can get this show and a lot of shows days early before anybody else gets to hear it. But enough talking about it. We'll go ahead and see you there at the Squared Circle. Oh, yeah. Don't tap out. Tune in.
Hey, it's Ashley from the Gamer Core. You may remember me from such episodes as Big Screen Mess, Mo Money Mo Platforms, and Brad Can Read. Tune in weekly as I blab with my co-hosts Raul the Nerdy Chicano and Brad the Random Germ about the latest news in gaming and gush over what we're playing at the moment. Oh yeah, and we got the deals too. Keep up with the latest deals in gaming and what's happening as I mediate Brad and Raul fighting like a married couple. Will Death Stranding ever come out? Will Cyberpunk 2077 live up to the hype? Is a next-gen worth a $500 console price tag? And has there ever been a movie adaptation of a video game that's been done right? It's all on the Gamer Core podcast, everywhere where podcasts are.
Hey everyone, my name is Raul, the Nerdy Chicano, and I am the host of The Impaired Files. The Impaired Files is an interview show brought to you every Thursday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. And I interview people such as filmmakers, content creators on YouTube, and podcasters like Colton Geschwander. And if you want to listen to that early, a whole week early, all you got to do is go to the Patreon and pledge to the $1 tier. And if you want to listen to it with the general public, then go to the Nerdcore podcast feed on anchor.fm/the Nerdcore. and the case is closed, but it's not classified. See you guys there.
Hey guys, this is Brad, aka Young Yoda. Raul said I had to make an ad, so that's what I'm doing. It's supposed to be for Unstructured, but as you guys know, you can freaking catch me everywhere when it comes to this podcast feed. You can find me on the Nerd Cores, on Gamer Cores, on Nerdy Chicanos sometimes when I get lost. But for this particular one, I want you guys to go check out Unstructured. The Raul gave me free reign to do whatever I want to do. I don't know what he was thinking. So go hear me talk about LeBron James and Taco Tuesday, vaping, so many other freaking weird topics that chimichangas, that's a good one. Shout out to Deadpool. And yeah, I guess this is the end of the ad. So if you guys want to find me, you can find me all over the place on this podcast feed. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I love you all. And nerd up.
Hello, 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 guys and gals, and you're listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore. I am your host, Daniela Nunez, and along with my amazing co-host, Ashley Garcia, we discuss many things like social impact, pop culture, political realms, and any controversy surrounding the Nerdverse. Tune in and listen to us bi-weekly on the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we will love to chat and hear your thoughts on our wonderful show. And thank you again for listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore.
What's up, everybody? It is me, Raul, and I'm one of the hosts of the Nerdy Chicano Show. The Nerdy Chicano Show is a comedic show brought to you by Luis and myself, and it comes to you all every Sunday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. You can catch it a day early by becoming a Patreon and supporting us at the $1 tier. And I don't really know how to explain this show other than it's fun. We get to talk about whatever we want, and it helps you move on in the week. So if you want to catch the Nerdy Chicano Show every Sunday at 8 a.m. All you got to do is go to anchor.fm/thenerdcore, and we'll see you there, baby. Hey everyone, I'm Raul.
And I'm Brad.
And we're the hosts of the Nerdcore Podcast, the podcast that talks that nerd. Not on this ad, right?
Not
and
on this one.
We come to you every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. On the Mondays, we talk the news. That's the box office, the news of the week, and your trailer talk if there is any. And on Tuesday, we have our theme review. And on Saturday, you have a Saturday morning review, usually movies that have come out in the week or anything we want to talk about. Right, Brett?
Exactly. Whatever we want to talk about, this is our show. If you don't like it, then you don't have to listen.
We're the flagship show of the Nerdcore Podcast feed, and we can be found everywhere you can listen to podcasts like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. So if you want to talk that nerd stuff with us every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday, make sure you tune in. And Brad?
Young Yoda out.
All right, welcome back after commercial break. Thank you guys for listening to those wonderful ads. And of course, if you want to listen to those shows, you go to anchor.fm/nerdcore. And please leave a rating review on the Apple Podcast or Stitcher feed. It really, really helps us out a lot when having people, actually come and check out the show and all the different shows that are on there. Right now, of course, because there's a pandemic, I'm not forcing anybody to record if they can't. So the only actual active shows at the time are the Nerdcore and Nerdcore live show. So, if you go there expecting for there to be a new episode of, let's say, Nerdy Chicano Show, it's not going to be there. But for now, we have 2 active shows on there, which are going, pretty much, let's say, 5 days a week. So it's still a good amount of content there. So go in to rate and review the show on your podcast app of choice, please. And of course, go and also, rate and review this podcast on your podcast app of choice, because it's 2 separate feeds. Now, I also want to remind you, this show is also available on the Cinema Condition is also available on that feed. But if you're listening on that feed, you're way behind. Like, what's it called? Our season is going to end on this feed, and on that feed, we're barely going to be at like 22. So make sure you guys are listening on this feed. But if you want to catch those reruns, or you want to be catching on through there, just know that you're going to finish up a little later than expected. So we're back, and we're discussing. We're going to finish up our discussion here. We're not finish it. We're going to continue it and then finish it. But we were talking about, this whole existence and how they're publicly executed. So I wanted to bring up that basically the world of Blade Runner, Los Angeles in 2019, it is basically a police state. And it's really interesting because this is a police state in the world that you see there. while when the police seem to have the most power, they're the ones publicly executing in literally in the public. And it's funny. It's not well, it's not funny, but it's like it's quite interesting in the way that it's very relevant to the world we see today, especially in the United States, when we somehow do live in a police state where the police do have a normal amount of power. And I don't know if, you know, Ridley was really thinking about this when he made the film, but it's just, it's crazy how incredibly relevant it is, how incredibly relevant it is to now. You know, you have this police state, and then later on we're going to talk about, you know, how the world of Blade Runner is basically representative of a late capitalist type of society. So what do you agree with me there, Julia, that this is basically a police state in this video? I mean, in this video, not video. I'm sorry, a movie. Not video. It's not
This 2-hour video.
Yeah, this two hour video. Yeah. Julia,
Sorry, I think.
oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know if you heard me. But yeah, no. Do you agree with the fact that the Blade Runners are basically a police force that's basically controlling the state of the world that we have in Blade Runner?
Yeah, of course. It's like police oppression with the replicants.
Yeah, and it's really
like super controlled. Like even though the Los Angeles is like super populated,
Mhm.
you know, there and you can see there's a lot of cops in some parts of town, but
Mhm.
even with a lot of police officers around there, you can actually visualize a lot of criminalized stuff, like the kids on that part of the movie that feels like they're robbing people and stuff like that. And there's a lot of dirty stuff, even though there's police officers around there.
Well, you see, like some of the like obviously you see in this film that some of the women that are working there, like they're supposed to be dancers, but very obviously they're also working as prostitutes. And you know, Decker doesn't give a crap about the prostitution. He just he cares that if they're replicants, and he completely bats an eye to the other woman because she's not a replicant, and she goes to the replicant and kills them. But like I said, publicly executes them in public. And you see this kind of, you know, this idea of this police force being, you know, so oppressive and watching over, making sure that these replicates are found and terminated right on the spot. And it's very it's very fucked up.
You can see they're super selective. They just want to kill the replicants, and that's it.
Yeah,
the prostitution is okay, the murder is okay, but if you're not a replicant, then it's okay.
Yeah, the children roaming the streets who are poor and they're hungry, like that's okay. But if you're a replicant, we have to terminate you.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
and I want to say that it's also, once again, you know, if you've never watched this film and you're listening to this, I'm really sorry that I'm spoiling a lot, but Deckard is
wait. If you never watched Blade Runner, stop this podcast right now and then go and watch it, and then you come back.
Yes, please. I was gonna say that
do yourself a favor.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, you know, obviously Deckard is a freaking replicant, and he's used to hunt down his own people. And it's also very reminiscent of how police departments in the military, they seem to, you know, seek out minorities and they use them and basically do their bidding. And it's like once again, I'm telling you, it's a very multifaceted type of layers of a film that are very, very strong within that. And you see this very, you know, it's dystopian as hell. It is very dystopian as hell, but it primarily because of this whole police force of the Blade Runners.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, the police state wouldn't be able to exist without capitalism upholding it to an extent. And that's how I get into this whole idea of late stage capitalism within this film. You know, obviously, what's it called? the replicants are created by Tyrell Corporation. Tyrell Corporation, they obviously live in those high buildings that you see that are nowhere near the smog that is infesting Los Angeles, while the poor lower class people, especially the Blade Runners, live in that bottom part where the smog is polluting their streets, and they have to live within that, while the rich scum basically live with luxury. And then right along the buildings, you have all these other different corporations kind of showing off what they're selling, and it's really a corporate controlled type of environment.
Yeah, every time I watch Blade Runner at the Tyrell building, I always make a parallel. I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah, parallel.
But yeah, okay. I compare it to the ancient Egypt, where the pharaohs, like, they have pyramids to rest after they die, and the Tyrell building similar to a pyramid, and it's like higher than the other people, while the poors are starving around there, and Tyrell is super cool in his pyramid.
Yeah, exactly. And I've never heard that the connection to it. That's really interesting that you bring it up, because Tyrell does live in a pyramid, and you basically have him
exactly.
And then it kind of turns 180 when the poor are the ones that come back and literally murders him, like gauges his eyes out, and just kills him like the mountain kills Oberyn in Game of Thrones by crushing his skull in.
Exactly.
Yeah. Rest in peace to the Red Viper. But it's just it's this whole type of class warfare where you have these Blade Runners turning against the own citizens that live within their city, because they're no different from them, because they're just as poor as these replicants. And then of course you have these brainwashed genetic people that are used to create replicants, who are made to feel so good for Tyrell, when Tyrell are the ones who are literally ordering the mass genocide of these people. And they cry and they say like, oh, then Mr. Tyrell's a genius and he's amazing. But, they don't know that he is literally causing the suffering and the hurt of all these people. And it's just
and
so
he's the only
interesting.
one who gets the benefits, because the guys that provide the eyeballs and the guy from the genetics just, they don't live with rich stuff. They're poor, and they're like regular people, while Tyrell's like up there being rich and playing chess,
Yeah. And he lives like within the city. Sebastian lives within the city. He deals with his mental disorder, and he doesn't even get any care for it. He lives in a house that's basically broken down. He can't even leave the house without trying to function properly. And he opens his doors to the replicant who comes in and lives with him for a bit, while Tyrell has to justify even seeing Sebastian. He has to give all these reasons as to why he needs to go see Tyrell. But Sebastian is so eager to open his doors to the replicant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you can see the difference, like how humble the others are, and Tyrell is like, fuck you.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it's once
Like,
again this whole idea of
You can
class
just
warfare.
come in if you play chess right.
If you play
If you're
chess
not playing
right.
right, just don't come in.
Yeah. And of course it is all just once again a fraction of this whole class warfare that's happening within the film, and kind of separating these people when they're just as not well off as the replicants are. The only thing that separates them is that all these other regular citizens are not being publicly targeted, but they all still live the same. They're all just still poor as hell. They all don't get to live in these riches. They still have to consume the pollution that's underground. It's just while Tyrell literally gets to live in riches and gets the benefit from the labor of all these other different people that he created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's just once again another another beautiful representation of capitalism, and you know, this very late stage version of it that is so very controlling and very reminiscent in here, and it's just once again another part of what really just kind of brings in here to the table. Like, he was really, for 1982, he was able to bring in these very, very relevant things that we're seeing kind of now.
Yeah, you know, there's some countries in, like Venezuela, for example,
Mm-hmm.
the rich are fine and the rest of people are starving. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, here it's near my country. It's not like, I don't know, Middle East, that, oh my God, I don't know what's going on in there because media don't go in there. Like, it's happening here and right now, and he wrote about it like in 82.
Yeah.
So it's incredible.
Yep.
Sadly incredible.
Sadly incredible, right? Sadly incredible. But I can't believe that, you know, he was able to make it so damn, what's it called, relevant even for now. But yeah, it's once again just shows off just the intelligence of Ridley Scott when creating this movie. Let me check my very handy dandy notebook here, and yeah, because we have some other stuff here. Oh, I have one last thing in here that I actually wanted to bring up that I didn't get to bring up, but it's the kind of the moral ambiguity within Deckard, Harrison Ford's character, which you kind of see throughout the whole thing. The first part you kind of see of it is when he meets obviously Rachel, and he's kind of asking, what's it called, Tyrell, like, you know, how like, she's a replicant, why haven't you, you know, terminated her? And obviously he wants to get her terminated. And then you see kind of Deckard create this, you know, connection with Rachel, obviously falling in love with her, which then changes this whole idea of what replicants really mean, and if he's supposed to even, you know, continue doing this job. And even though he fights, he really does reach that ambiguity stage when he's fighting with Roy Batty, and Roy's telling him all these things like, you know, that your memories won't matter. You know, everything you're going to cease to exist, and you're here kind of enacting this very oppressive regime on the back of Tyrell, who literally does nothing for you and won't do anything for you, and you're still going to be stuck in this very minimal existence that you hold. But, you know, what's it called? At least you have not seen the actual, you know, dangers of what these people are able to do, because as he says beautifully in the monologue, you know, he's seen attack ships drown on the what's it called, on the rings of Orion. And, you know, all that Deckard has done is basically publicly execute these people, but he's actually seen the secondhand suffering of his people, while Deckard is here having a crisis, understanding whether or not he wants to continue being part of this oppressive regime. And he kind of makes that.
And one thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
When we get to know like the other replicants, it goes against what it was supposed to replicant means. It wasn't supposed to have feelings, because all those memories were fake. They were from other persons, so it wasn't supposed for them to have feelings. And then Deckard sees that Rachel has feelings, Roy has feelings, everyone there has feelings. They just want to live. It's not just an instinct of survival. They enjoy things. They like each other. It's not just instinctive, you know. They have feelings.
Yeah. And which once again just kind of leads up to that ending where he kind of makes the decision, no, I got to run away with Rachel. And as you can tell, if you watched 2049, you know that they still hunted down Rachel and Deckard and their children. And you kind of see how, you know, he finally makes that decision after seeing that, you know, these replicants they're not robots. They actually are people who feel. Even though these memories they have implanted in them are fake, they still feel just like all these other humans do, and they shouldn't be, you know, kind of hunted down like animals.
Exactly.
So that kind of concludes it. I mean, you know, there's also this other kind of interesting layer to it that I never really got to see. I obviously didn't really, write it down here, but I kind of saw kind of this whole religious symbolism too, especially when Roy Batty puts the nail through his hand, and he what's it called? He puts it there, and it's like it's kind of very symbolism of Christ being put the nail into his hands when he's crucified, and those like there's just this really interesting sort of religious aspect to it, especially the white dove that it flies in it in one of the versions of the film. Very religious subtext in there too, but I mean I can't really speak on that because I don't have a really big formed analysis on that, but I wanted to.
I usually see the when he hurts his hand I've always understood that like he wants to still feel something.
Mm-hmm.
They're like I've always interpreted that he's losing his feelings, like he's not sensing it, so he wants to sense again.
Yeah,
He knows he's going to die, so he wants to feel something.
yeah, because he knows he's going to die, and that he's not
And
like
sooner.
a lot
And
sooner
he
than
dies sooner than he was supposed to die.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I could not finish this without saying what's it called? A very that's what's it called? Roy Batty is obviously played by the late great Rutger Hauer, who passed away, I believe, a year ago already. I think it was a year ago. Please don't tell me it was this year. It was a year ago, right? Yeah,
It was
2019.
last year, the year of Blade Runner.
Yeah. He passed away, and I want to say that now that monologue, the Tears and Rain monologue, is a lot more hard to get through now because he's gone. But,
And he actually died in the year he died in the Blade Runner.
Yeah, which is absolutely
That's
nuts.
super. It's crazy.
It is. It's nuts. It's scary and nuts, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And one thing I like about this guy is that he's like, never watched another movie with him, but he really tried to make a difference. He did a lot of social stuff. He did good to humanity, he was a good person. And he did something besides being a replicant. He did something.
By the way, I never noticed that Edward James Olmos was in this movie until I saw the name. Like, I can't believe I watched the movie 3 times and I never noticed when the names were coming up that it was Edward James Olmos. But I checked it out this time and I was like, wait, Edward James Olmos is in this? And when you meet Gaff, you're like, yeah, that's Edward James Olmos.
Yeah.
I can't believe it, but that just goes to show what I obviously didn't pay attention as much as I thought I was paying attention. But that's our conversation on Blade Runner 1982. And I've got to say thank you to Julia for coming on. And we're going to go ahead and get into the interesting stuff here. So everybody gets to everybody gets to choose a movie that they recommend and a movie that they get to claim for season 2 on the first time they ever come on the show. Because obviously when you come back again, during the first season, by the way, not next season. But if you have multiple slots in the season, you don't get to recommend or claim another movie. You just gotta message me and tell me if you want another movie. But we're gonna go ahead and get Julia's pick here. So Julia, what is the movie that you're going to recommend for the people, and what is the movie that you're going to claim for season 2? And you can't recommend this movie, by the way. That's cheating.
I've already recommended in the episode to watch Blade Runner, so I'm going to recommend Black Swan.
Ooh.
I love Black Swan. It's amazing. I can say I've watched it a lot. I really enjoyed this movie, and I love movies with mental stuff. Like it really touches me.
Psychological thriller.
It really makes my feelings, And the movie I want to pick up for the next season is Mary and Max.
Oh man, yeah. You told me you were like Mary and Max would be another one I want to do, And I was like, okay, well, I mean, obviously I couldn't give you a second slot, but yeah, I had a feeling that you were going to choose Marion Max.
Yeah.
Who did Marion Max?
I love this movie so much. Like, so much. I cry every time I watch it. And it's beautiful every time I watch it. And it's so beautiful. It's like, beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, it's the animated movie. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like slow motion movie, actually.
Yeah.
Slow motion.
Stop motion, right?
Stop motion, yeah.
Yeah.
And with clay.
Nice.
It's not with the yeah.
Claymation. That's really cool.
Yeah, and the story is beautiful, and it really teaches you a lot of things about friendship and love, and it's amazing. It's like based on a true story, actually.
Yeah, I've never seen this movie
right
before.
now. Really?
Yeah, I've never seen this movie before.
So I have to. Yeah, it's amazing. It's based on a true story about a girl who sends a letter to a girl in Australia, sending letters to a 40-year-old man, solitary, and he's Jewish and he's 40 years old. And like they start a friendship by letters, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Like they have problems and how they deal with the problems.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. And
beautiful. Yeah, I can't wait to watch this movie. I've like I said, I've never seen this movie before, so this is gonna be even interesting.
You have to watch it.
Even more interesting. Yep. So, Julia, before we leave, can you let the people know where they can find you on the internet and all that wonderful stuff?
You can find me on Twitter as Rylocans, on Instagram as Julia Codfefi, and Facebook as Julia Codfefi too. There's another 2 last names, but you can just search for Julia Codfefi. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one.
Now, I don't want to embarrass myself here, but it is Beninka or Beninka?
Beninka.
Beninka Guterres, right?
Guterres.
Guterres, yeah. Guterres. And obviously, I wasn't going to say Gutierrez, but it's Guterres, yeah. All right, you see, so I got it right. I got it right on the page. I knew how to say it. But that was
you just have to scratch the R a little bit more, but
Guterres.
Perfect. Almost
Guterres.
perfect.
Guterres.
No, it's like have. Guterres.
Guterres.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Okay. All right. Here we go. You see, it's not that hard for me to get down to Portuguese names. Don't worry about it. Brazilian names. Yeah. Yeah. So it's what these languages are so common for. But yes, this was our 24th episode, and absolutely I loved it. Thank you so much, Julia, for coming on. Of course, you can find her wherever she told you guys to find her, and you can find this show. You can find this show on this feed. Please leave a rate and review on this feed on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. But also go and check out the nerdcore.com, where I'm posting all my articles for my 75 Films from Asia Challenge. And I'm also going to be starting to do video reviews on my personal channel, Raul Alejandro Mendoza. So go and check that out and go and check all the wonderful stuff up. I'm posting soon my work there. So, of course, you can also find my short films I've done on there. So you should already be subscribed just for that. But if you want to see some video reviews and you want to see movie reviews of all these movies I'm covering for 75 Films from Asia Challenge, go ahead and check that out. But without further ado, as always, it's a lot of fun. And I don't have an outro, but today I actually want to read the monologue for you guys in honor of the wonderful Ruger Hauer, who shall rest in peace. And I'll send you guys out, and I'll read this for you guys. So here it is. Roy Batty. I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser gates. All those moments will be lost in time, like tears in rain. Time to die.